What is up, everyone?
We are back again with another episode of the podcast. Nathan Marz here, joined by Brandon Eckel, and we got NBA Finals talk to get to. We're through 2 games now of the NBA Finals. Series tied 1-1, and Game 3 is tomorrow. Series is tied 1-1. The final scores were not close, but they were 2 entertaining games. I mean, the second game did get out of hand, but it was close for the first half. And even though it did get out of hand, like that third quarter was entertaining to see the Warriors kind of go on their run and everything. I think it's been some pretty good basketball overall and interesting to kind of watch things unfold. But let's talk about that for a little bit. So game 1, obviously, Celtics steal it 40-16. They outscore the Warriors in the fourth quarter. And really just kind of stunned them. I know Golden State was up like 15, I think, late in the third, and Celtics just could not miss a 3 in the fourth. I want to say they hit their first 7 threes of the fourth quarter, which is insane. They kind of did it was similar to me of like the Bucks game 5 against the Celtics, where like we were down and you're kind of like, this game's pretty much over, and they just kind of kept hitting threes to stay in it, and all of a sudden like just couldn't miss, and like the Bucks went 6 of 6 in that fourth quarter against the Celtics game 5. And kind of stole it at the end, and that's kind of what the Celtics, except they just, I think they were even better than we were. They just continuously kept hitting them and really pulled away and stepped up defensively. But game 1, Tatum 3 for 17, struggled scoring the ball, but had 13. Was it 13 or 12 assists? I think 13 assists.
Yes.
And he picked it up in game 2, but other guys, kind of those role players. It was, I think, Marcus Smart, Derek White, and Al Horford all combined to go 15 of 23 from 3 in game 1. Which is absurd. And then I think they were 2 for 7 in game 2. So the Warriors definitely made more of an effort to actually close out on those guys, take the 3-ball away from those guys, because I mean, ultimately, like when they're forced to put the ball on the floor, they're not as good. They're kind of like the guys that, they just get those spot threes, and if you're giving them some room, they can hit them. They have plenty of role players that can do that. We saw that the Bucks game 7 with Grant Williams, where like if you leave him open, he can hit threes. Like if you close on them, they're not as good. They're not as good putting the ball on the floor, all that stuff. But Warriors definitely took that away, and they stepped up in game 2 and really tied it back up and put some pressure back on Boston now going back home. I want to ask you, who do you think is feeling better right now or should feel better right now, Warriors or Celtics?
I would say, I guess, just based on from game 1 to game 2, I'd go Golden State, because it's like, now, if they can at least just go 1-on-1 on the road, it's back to, okay, we got home court advantage, not a big deal. 2-2 now, 2 games at home, if needed. Celtics have been better on the road than at home in the playoffs. I'm not sure what their record is exactly, but they've actually been better away from home. So I feel like Golden State's feeling pretty good to steal 1 game, maybe 2. And it's been both games where it's like, I think Bill Simmons was kind of talking about it, like, Curry was like 1-3 away when they were up like 13 or something in game 1, where it felt like they could have really pulled away, and it was a miss, and then it was Boston went on their run. So it's like they were this close. They played so good for majority of the game. Fell apart in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I want to say the score was 87-72 in the first quarter, or in the first game, third quarter.
Yeah.
87-72 as Steph launched a 3 from the top. And it missed, but I remember like as it goes up, you're like, if this goes in, this game's out of hand. Like it's an 18-point game, and it's like, and they missed. I think the Celtics went down and hit a 3 to make it 12, and like again, they just kind of kept hitting threes to stay in it, all that. But I was gonna say the same thing. There was a point where like they were basically that Steph 3 going in away from really feeling like this game 1 was wrapped up. So, and not to say that like I don't want to act like obviously we hate Boston. We want them to lose this series. Yeah. So I have been, when I watch the game, I'm kind of like, I'm rooting for Golden State. I'm looking for ways to kind of like be optimistic about Golden State, and kind of like, just, even like when I'm watching the Bucks, like you're looking for things to be optimistic about. So sometimes you're a little bit biased, but trying to not be too biased here and look at things from both perspectives. Like I'm not going to sit here and act like Golden State, even though they could have been up 18 if that Curry 3 goes in the first game, they obviously blew them out in the second game. It hasn't been pure domination all the way throughout by Golden State. It's not like they only had one bad quarter in that game 1 fourth quarter, because Um, I'm trying to think of. I was the first quarter was close in game one. You know, Steph went off in the first quarter, and Celtics kept it close, and then the Celtics ended up taking the lead in the second quarter.
Up 2 at half.
Yeah, so they took the lead in the second quarter. So the Celtics outplayed them in the second quarter, game one. Narrowly got outplayed in the first quarter. Game three, Golden State outplayed them, and then obviously they outplayed them in the fourth. But like they won 2 quarters there, and then in game two, they were down 2 at half, and or were they up? Wait, the Celtics were up 2 at half.
That was in game one. They're up 2 at half. I'm not sure game two. I know they're up at the end of the first quarter.
Actually, I have it up here. So the Celtics were down 2 at half. They got outscored by 1 in the first quarter and 1 in the second quarter of game two. So 2 very close quarters there. Like they haven't. This isn't something where Golden State's dominated them. It's just been the third quarters. Golden State won by 14 in game one, and then they won by 21 in game two. So honestly, if you had to pick one team that is like they've only had a couple good quarters or a couple really good quarters, it's Golden State, not Boston. Now, Boston had that massive first quarter, but other than that, it's been pretty close. So I'm not going to, although it could easily be 2-0 Golden State, if, they just hold on to that lead, I'm not going to sit here and say that they've kind of dominated this series because I don't really think that's been the case. There've been a lot of close quarters. It's been pretty close in general. But I do think both teams are kind of feeling okay right now. I think Boston obviously did their job. They took one of the first 2 games. That's what you have to do when you're the road team. And, they're 1-1 going back home. And I think Golden State's saying, hey, we blew that game 1, but we came back and we demolished them in game 2. And we're still, again, we pretty close to being up 2-0. And we do kind of think that if you put all 8 quarters together, I think Golden State's been the better team. So I think they both have reasons to be optimistic and reasons to be hopeful going forward. How would you grade? I want to kind of go through some of these top guys here. Tatum's first 2 games overall. I know, again, two very different games. Game 1, he struggled scoring and was good passing the ball. Game 2, put up some points, but had some turnovers and wasn't as good with everything else.
Tatum, I don't know. I'd probably give him like a B because his plus minus was really bad last game, but I feel like that's kind of a game where I feel like there's certain instances where it's like, okay, like Giannis with the Bucks, and this isn't to be biased or nitpicky, but it's like there's games where you can tell everybody had like a negative or close to 0, and then Giannis is like +7 or something. Like he obviously is making a difference, but for Tatum to be, I want to say it was like -36 or something like that, crazy. I feel like it doesn't really show. He was scoring the ball really well. Whereas, like you said, game 1, I think he only had, 10, 12 points, something like that?
Yeah, he had 12.
And then all the assists, he was making good reads. So I'd probably give him like a B. He's playing a little above average, but he's got to middle it out. Like I'd rather have 24 and 8 assists than, 12 assists and you're not scoring. Then you got 28 points, and like I think he had 3 assists in game 2. So he's got to kind of find the middle.
Yeah, I'd probably give him a C, honestly, and it's part of it is just the expectation of you're Jason Tatum. You want to be considered a top 5-10 player. Like you kind of have to be better. And again, not that he wasn't good in game 2, but it was more like he's really good from 3. That kind of saved him in this game. He was 6 of 9 from 3, but 2 of 10 from 2, and had the 4 turnovers, 3 assists. So. I don't think it was particularly good in game 2. I just think in the first half he hit like 5 threes, and that that was kind of like what made it a good game for him. Jaylen Brown, I think, was very good in the first game, was very clutch in the fourth quarter, and then started out game 2 well, but then you could see the Warriors kind of started to key in on him, and over the course of the whole game were able to kind of slow him down. Ended up 5 of 17, and I want to say he hit 3 or 4 shots right away. So he was very quiet in the last 3 quarters of that game.
What do you end up with?
He ended up with 17 points, 5 of 17 shooting. Yeah,
I was going to say, I want to say he only scored maybe like 5 points after the first quarter or something like that.
Yeah, because I know he I remember looking, he had 11 or 12 right away.
So that makes sense.
So he definitely got slowed down. Other side of things, Curry's been really good. He obviously was great in the first quarter of game 1. He did struggle a little bit in those last 3 quarters as they, kind of adjusted and took him away a bit. But game 2 came out 29 points, 9 of 21. 5 of 12 from 3 and 7 of 14 from 3. He was 7 of 14 in game 1, 5 of 12 game 2. Like, that's, really, really good. So he's definitely been showing up and, kind of got at least a little bit of help in game 2. Poole off the bench was big. Looney steps up. Wiggins was okay. Wiggins wasn't that good, but he was at least able to provide some type of offense. And I mean, game 1 as well. Like Curry, it was Curry had 34, Wiggins had 20, and the problem kind of was the bench. Other than it was Curry and Wiggins combined for 54. The only guy on the bench that really did anything was Otto Porter. Jordan Poole struggled, and nobody else really provided much. And Klay's been definitely struggling. He's kind of been the guy that I kind of look at and say, okay, this is again why I think Golden State can feel good is they easily could be up 2-0, and Klay has not been good. He had 15 in game 1 and 6 of 14 from the field, and then 11 in game 2, 4 of 19, 1 of 8 from 3. So like easily not Klay Thompson numbers. And again, some of this can be the Celtics defense is good. They take things away. They're able to kind of take something away from you. Maybe if Klay goes off, Curry will have a bad game. So like it's not just to say that, Klay will get back into shape, but like again, you kind of have to feel a little bit okay if you're Golden State, knowing that you've outplayed them. If you look at the whole 2 games combined, you probably outplayed them overall, and Klay has not been good. So,
yeah, what would you give Klay right now if you had to give him a grade? I'd almost have to go F.
I'd go D. Yeah, I mean, his game 1 wasn't awful.
No, like 45% from the field. That's not terrible, but
he was 3 of 7 from 3 game 1. Like that's okay, but not much. Like 15 points in 39 minutes, 11 points game 2. Like that's again not Klay Thompson. So I'd go D.
Yeah.
And Curry, I mean, if I'm giving Curry a grade, I'll go A-. Would be an A if it wasn't for again that game 1 he didn't do much down the stretch. But I'll go A- for Curry. Jaylen Brown, I'll go B+ or B.
And Kevon Looney, I'm giving an A because he's doing the dirty work.
He does. And both of these teams, before we move on, and we kind of talked about this before the series, but both of these teams have that what championship teams have of a bunch of guys playing their role really well. And Looney does it for Golden State. We saw Gary Payton come in and do it for Golden State yesterday. Poole did it for Golden State yesterday. Wiggins is doing it. Green's doing it. They all have guys like Curry's the main guy, but everyone else is playing their role well. For Boston, obviously in game 1, I mean, Tatum wasn't even good, but you just had guys step up. Horford was amazing. Smart did his thing and hit some threes down the stretch. And Jaylen Brown stepped up. Derek White. It's a case of even that's why I'm even if Curry, with both of these teams, I feel like even if the star has a bad game, it's not like they're screwed. Whereas again, the Bucks, for example, with the Bucks, now they didn't have Middleton, so we're not going to act like this is like the Bucks in general. But when the Bucks were playing in their series against Boston, you're like, if Giannis doesn't have 30, we're going to lose this game. It's not really going to be he has to have 30. So both of these teams, though, it's they have the depth and they have the guys that can step up. That I just look at it and say, if even if Steph has a little bit of an off game, even if Jason Tatum has a little bit of an off game, though, I can still easily see those teams winning. So yeah, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just I don't know. I have no idea where this game 3 is going to lead, I guess, because like you said, I feel like both teams should be optimistic right now. They've both shown, kind of their strengths and weaknesses already in the first 2 games. So
give me your pick for game 3. I do think Golden State wins game 3. But I think they'll split them. I think it'll be, however it happens, I think they end up 2-2 after 4. But I think Golden State wins game 3 and Boston wins game 4.
Yeah, I would probably have to agree. I think outside of the, obviously, Brooklyn series where they sweeped them, both of their first games at home in the series, they lost. So 0-2 in their first road games, if that makes sense. So maybe it continues to go to 0 for 3.
Yeah, and I mean, because I do always want to like go to, oh, they're at home and Boston's got a good crowd, but again, I'm like, they haven't been that good at home. Like teams have
No.
gone in there and won, like pretty easily. Even,
Yeah.
I mean, Miami had that game, like it's a game 6 to go to the finals. You'd think that like that'd be pretty much locked up to win, and then say in the whole playoffs. I mean, the Bucks had the same thing. They had a game 6 to move on. They lost. Like it just isn't as sure of a thing, and some of that is to do with like the 3-point shot. Like if a team just gets hot from three, anyone can beat anyone. I don't know, but also like you kind of before this playoffs, I kind of kept saying like, role players play better at home, and like you kind of expect you to shoot better at home, but we just kind of haven't seen that. So I don't know. Anything can easily happen. Yeah, this is it. I like that it's a series that you don't know what's going to happen. It's pretty unpredictable. So
Right.
all right, time to move on. We have our Tuesday top 10, and we are doing top 10 3-point shooters in the NBA. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we can get started on our list. This one's interesting because we were talking about this before we started recording. A lot of different ways you could go with this, and like it is a make or miss league. It is like you look at the numbers and okay, if you're a good shooter, you're going to make a high percentage of your shots. But there's also the thing, the the factor of okay, who's guarded the heaviest, who has the highest volume, and taking that into account, like shooting the same percentage on a higher volume, the guy with higher volume is more impressive as a shooter. And again, thinking about which guys, how they're guarded, and the kind of role they play in their system and everything like that. So, all right, top 10 3-point shooters. I will let you start with number 10.
All right. Before 10, quick, I got to give an honorable mention to the guy who didn't make my list, Karl Anthony Towns.
All right.
Don't know if you're going to have him on here, but just want to say that for the record. Number 10, I have a guy that I really like, Tyrese Halliburton. Shooting 41% from three. No, we're not talking college, but he shot 40% 2 years in a row in college. Shoots about 5 threes a game. Has a very weird looking shot, unorthodox, but it goes in. He continues to make them off the dribble, catch and shoot. So I had to throw him on this list.
I don't mind it. I mean, any guy who's consistently above 40%, I'm not gonna have a problem with. I'll give you my honorable mention first. And this isn't, people are gonna get mad at this. My honorable mention is Chris Middleton. I don't have him in the
Oh,
top 10. I love Chris. I'm part of it is like and he's probably like a top 12 guy for me. Like he's probably right there. Um, he's always around that 38 to 41%, anywhere around there. I will say with Chris, a little bit of inconsistency issues, obviously, where like you don't always know what you're getting from him, and also, I mean, I think part of it is to the system. Like I think some of it is due to him getting open threes because of Giannis and that benefiting him. So I took him down just a little bit because of that. And again, if you look at other guys in the league, there's guys that are, the main focal point of the defense and are still able to shoot 40%, which to me is a little bit more impressive. Not nothing against Chris, but Chris is my honorable mention. My number 10 is Karl Anthony Towns. And yeah, I mean, he's probably the best shooting big man of all time. This year he was 41% on almost 5 attempts per game, and he's been consistent.
yeah.
The last 5 years, pretty much around that same percentage, 41%, 5 attempts per game, consistently. And again, it's been long enough for me that I'm like, I'll put him on this list. Maybe one more year for Halliburton gets him. If he's better than Cat next year, might push him up. I don't have Halliburton. I have. I'd say he's probably 11 or 12 as well for me. But they're right there. I mean, Halliburton is like 41% on 5 attempts a game, so they're literally like the same type of percentages. So that's my number 10. Is Karl Anthony Towns, and we'll go to you for number 9.
Okay. My number 9 is actually where I have Chris.
Okay.
Bounce having him a little higher, but I kind of think of it more as like who's a guy where you kick out, it's a knockdown shooter, and there's times where Chris is like that. I mean, he's hit some big freaking shots, but he's kind of more that get to a spot, scorer feel. A lot more mid range oriented. So that's why I have him a little lower, I guess, than a few of these guys.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, just to remind people, we're focusing on 3-point shooting. Obviously, some guys are, really good outside shooters from like the mid range and stuff, and overall shooters, but we're kind of trying to focus on guys from 3.
Mm-hmm.
My number 9 is Paul George, and this one's interesting, and this is a pattern that I kind of found when I was making this list. A lot of guys that I have on this list kind of had down seasons and like weren't fantastic shooting this season, or maybe were hurt or whatever, but they've been so good for like 5 years before that I'm like, I'm not going to take them off my top 10. I'm at least yet.
Yeah.
But Paul George, he was only 35% this year. Only played 31 games, but 35% on 8 attempts per game which is high volume. But the 7 years before that combined, he was 39% on almost 8 attempts per game, which is very high volume, and you're right around 40% for 7 seasons. Like, I'm still going to have him top 10 because that's a long time of very good shooting. And the 2 years, right before this one, he was 41% the year before, or it's 41% last year and 41% the year before, again, right around 8 attempts per game, which is a lot. So I'm going to have him still number 9. The question is, with the injury and everything, will that affect him, and will that maybe if he struggles again next year, he probably gets bumped off. But right now, I do still have him number 10.
Okay, I like that. 1 sec. All right, did you want me to go for 8 first, or you?
We'll keep flipping. So
okay.
You go 8.
All right, my number 8, I have Patty Mills.
Okay.
Dude who's been around for a long time, can be a little streaky at times, but still 39% 3-point shooter for his career. I've seen this guy be able to just step into threes, catch and shoot when he's hot. He was a guy that came right to my mind, so it was tough to not put him on here for me. I don't think you're gonna have him on here though.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I won't say if I do or not, but yeah, I mean he's definitely one of those guys where like, yeah, just when you think about the best shooters, he kind of comes to your mind, or when you like watch him play, or when your team's going against him, you right away are like, all right, like somebody's got to guard Patty Mills. So I do like that. My number 8 is another guy who did struggle this season. Bumped him down a little bit on this list. Damien Lillard. He only shot 32% from 3 this year. But I mean, almost 10 attempts per game. His volume is like up there, kind of in the close to Steph Curry range in terms of how many threes he's taken per game.
Yeah.
The 2 years before this one, he was 40% on 10 attempts per game, which is absurd. So that alone, I mean, he's definitely in the top 10. I mean, I could easily have him even like top. You could have him top 3, and I wouldn't even be mad at you because of what he's done in the past couple of years. Again, 40% on 10 attempts per game. It's like basically just him and Steph are doing that. So I don't mind if you want to put him, higher on this list. And with the way he's defended as well, I mean, he gets picked up at half court because teams know he can shoot from anywhere. So he's way up there. But I do think this year bumped him down a bit because, I don't know, it seemed like he did struggle this year, only 32%. And so I'm moving him down.
Okay, well, I have him in my 7 slots, so just above. Obviously, has made some huge shots, and like you said, the big thing with him is volume. Just the amount of shots he takes, the difficulty having, he'll get double teams thrown at him, has to escape, kind of create his own shot. Yeah, tough year for him shooting wise, but obviously then was kind of hurt. So,
all right, my number 7, and yeah, you have to take into account the team around him isn't very good too. So like, just the attention. Number 7 on my list, Kyrie Irving. And I want to just ask you, do you have Kyrie Irving on your list?
I do.
Okay, good. Because I never knew. I looked at the numbers today. I didn't know he was this good of a shooter.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't. Like, I knew he was a good shooter. I knew, like, okay, he's someone who can hit threes. But you don't think of this type of shooting when you think of Kyrie Irving. Like, I'm kind of more like, okay, he's going to be dribbling the ball, getting to mid-range and pulling up and stuff like that. career 39% 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
He's been over 39% in 9 out of his 11 seasons in the league. This season, now limited sample with 29 games, but 42% on 8 attempts per game. Last 6 years combined, 40% on almost 7 attempts per game. He's been over 40% in 5 of the last 6 seasons, and the only season he wasn't over 40%, he was at over 39%. Like, I didn't know he was this consistently good as a shooter. Like,
Yeah.
again, I was expecting to look at Kyrie Irving and see like 37%, like good shooting, but nothing crazy. I did not. I just never have really thought of him that way. I never knew he was actually this, hit that many threes, and on that type of volume as well is very, very impressive. So could even have him higher on this list, which obviously you do, but
Yeah.
that's my number 7. So.
Well, I have him as I did with Lillard, just one spot ahead. Yeah, he's kind of a slept-on three-point shooter, just because, like you said, he's got the mid-range. He can get to the rim. He's a really good finisher. So I feel like his 3 points almost a thing that people kind of like don't think about or just overlook. But when you look at the numbers, so good. His ability to hit tough shots. We've seen it when he's on the court. So I like Kyrie. Obviously, there's a lot of weird stuff about him, but such a smooth player.
Yeah. All right. My number 6. So your number 6 is Kyrie. My number 6 is Buddy Hield. Another guy who did have a little bit of a down year, 37% on almost 9 attempts per game. But in the 5 seasons before that, he was 41% on just over 7 attempts per game, which very good volume, very good shooting. I've always kind of looked at him as one of the better pure shooters in the league because he's consistently like I think last year he was like 41% on 10 attempts per game, which like not this season, but the season before.
Yeah.
Which was when it really opened my eyes to like, this guy's doing something that like, again, usually only Curry, maybe Lillard are able to do is like shoot 40% on double digit attempts is absurd. So
Yeah.
I have him 6th. But again, another guy that kind of like, okay, he had a bit of a down year. It's going to be interesting to see if he kind of can get back to around that 40% mark next year.
Yeah, I like it. He, like you said, he's been a good shooter on volume shots. Can take them in stride. So I don't have him on my list, so I will say 5. I have Seth Curry.
No, right.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, I'm trying to pull them up here. I know, I mean, this year he made 47% on 6 a game. So I know he doesn't have, sorry, that was just with Brooklyn. Then you look at, where is he, 40% on 5.5 a game with Philly. I mean, he's a 44% 3-point shooter over his career. If you look at it, it's pretty crazy. He doesn't take necessarily as many threes. He's only like 4 or 5 a game. But when he's been given the shots, he's been able to knock them down. I mean, there's a guy in here that I'm realizing I should have put on here, but
and I'm realizing the same because I didn't have Seth Curry on my list.
well, I don't have Luke Kennard. I don't know if you're gonna have him on here.
Hold on, I need to put Seth Curry on my list because I completely forgot about him. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna bump everyone down a spot. I'm gonna go Paul George number 10, Lillard number 9, because I think he's better than.
Well, I'm gonna need to change mine up because I was just looking over my notes and I totally forgot to. What I usually do is for anyone, not that you guys maybe really care, but Nate will kind of send me what we're gonna do. So he said top 10 shooter. So I'll kind of do off the top of my head, do some research, a little bit of both, get like 15 guys, and then just kind of go from there. Kennard definitely should have been on there.
So since I'm bumping Karl Towns off my list, everyone gets moved down a spot. My number 6 is going to be Duncan Robinson because I had him 5, but I'm bumping him down for Seth Curry, who again, another guy that had a down season, 37% on almost 8 attempts per game. The volume's there, but the 2 years before this, he was 43% on good volume, which is absurd. Last 3 years combined, 41% on 8 attempts per game. He's a guy that, I mean, no, you know what? I'm gonna put Duncan 5th, and I'm gonna put Seth Curry sixth.
Okay.
Because the tiebreaker kind of to me, they're both very similar, but the tiebreaker to me is Seth is not guarded the way Duncan is, in my opinion. Duncan gets chased around constantly, whereas Seth is more of like kind of gets open looks off of other guys and stuff. So I'm gonna move Duncan ahead of him. Seth is someone I completely slipped my mind for whatever reason. I put together like a top. I don't know how he must have gotten left off because of like maybe because he got traded or something. But I had like I put in the numbers of like best 3-point shooters last 5 years, based on like who had the highest 3-point percentage. He somehow wasn't, because I was like just to get my mind going of like, okay, these are the best shooters, and he wasn't on there, so he must have gotten like cut off somehow. But that's why I forgot about him. So Seth is 6 for me. Duncan Robinson's 5. All right, your turn.
Okay. I'm curious if we have a different top 4 here.
We probably do. I'm guessing there's gonna be someone we
that I don't have and that you don't have. Number 4, I have Desmond Bain.
Okay.
I know it's only been 2 years, but his volume's up to about 7 threes a game this year and still stayed at 43%. Shot great at TCU. So, and this is another guy where kind of like Halliburton, I know it's early in their careers, but you look back, the numbers show and just the shot shows that it's going to continue to fall. It's going to continue to, it's tough to say get better, but be as good of a shooter as he has been on maybe 8 or 9 threes a game.
I also have Desmond Bain 4th. He was he was someone who I wanted the Bucks to try to draft with their pick a couple years ago. Because again, you just looked at him, I'm like, he is going to be able to shoot in the NBA. Like, it's going to translate. And obviously it has, in his 2 years, 44% on about 5.5 attempts per game. I mean, 44% for 3 is just amazing. And again, it's not like he's doing it on, low volume. I mean, 5.5 threes a game is pretty good. So I think, he's someone who's just going to be continuously, like, every single year in the 40s. And so I like that call at number 4.
All right, number 3, I have a guy who was out for a big chunk of this year, Joe Harris.
All right.
44% career 3-point shooter. He is the definition of a catch and shoot specialist, corner specialist, all the things you want to say. Absolute sniper.
All right. My number 3 is also a guy who missed a chunk of this year, Klay Thompson.
Okay.
Who, I mean, of course, like when you think of the best shooters, you're thinking of Steph, you're thinking of Klay. 39% this year, even coming off the injury, 9 attempts per game, super high volume. Every year except this year, he was over 40%. Last 5 seasons combined, 42% on 8 attempts per game, excluding the 2. Like his last 5 seasons he's played. Or I think that I don't remember I think this is like the 5 seasons, not counting the last year, so technically 3 seasons. But either way, I mean, he obviously, you don't have to really prove how good of a shooter Klay Thompson is with the numbers. He's Klay Thompson. He's got one of the purest shots and one of the most dangerous. And with him, it's like him and Curry. The thing about them, I feel like, you have all these other complementary like shooters that you're just like, okay, don't leave them open. But like guys like, I think the ones that stick out to me, Curry, Klay, and Lillard are the ones that like will just get red hot and like there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Because Klay is so good off the ball that like he can get to his shot. Lillard's so good stepping back and having these moves that he can get his shot. Curry, we know, like, again, both things. He's good off the ball. He's good on the ball, like getting his shot. And it's just like there's nothing you can do. Like they're going to get it off and you just have to pray it doesn't go in. That's those 3 guys to me. Whereas some of these other guys, I feel like Duncan Robinson, Bain, Seth Curry, like if all of a sudden they hit a couple, you can really clamp down on them a bit and, and prevent them from getting their looks. Whereas again, Curry, Klay, and Lillard to me are the 3 that just they're going to get their looks no matter what.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I totally agree.
Number 2.
Well, that leads me to my number 2, which is Klay Thompson.
Didn't you? Okay. I thought for sure, because you texted me and I was going to yell at you.
No.
You texted me saying Steph Curry is not number 1. And I was like, you're going to way overthink this and be like, oh, well, Joe Harris's numbers and blah blah blah.
No, I just have to say that as a little joke. And obviously, yeah, there's gonna be some people. Well, Joe Harris shoots so good, and it's like people don't understand. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. Is how tough it is for Curry to continue to shoot as good as he does and to get open. But
I have Joe Harris number 2.
okay.
You kind of went through the numbers, but
Yeah.
limited sample this year with 47% on 6 a game, over 41% each of the last 5 years, and last 5 seasons. So since 2017, I looked it up, and of guys who attempt like 5 a game, he's the number 1 in 3-point percentage at 45%. So strictly, if you want to go simply 3-point percentage, it's Joe Harris. But again, we both know like best shooter of all time and the best shooter in the NBA is Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
He I mean the volume combined with the attention he gets, and he's still able to consistently do it. He had a down year this year, 38% on almost 12 attempts per game. And again, every single team, every single night is stop Steph Curry from shooting the ball, don't let him get his shots, and he's still able to do this. Every one of the last 11 seasons, full seasons that he played, he had the one season he played like 5 games, which we don't count, but every one of the 11 full seasons he played before this season, he was over 41%. Again, just insane knowing how much attention he gets. Last 5 seasons combined, 41% on almost 12 attempts per game. 12 attempts per game, dude. That's absurd.
Yeah.
Like
continue to make it at that high of a clip. I mean,
every night this dude's shooting 12 threes, sometimes 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 18, and to continuously every single year, it's just inevitable. He's going to shoot 40%, no matter what you do, no matter how you guard him, and that's why he's the best 3-point shooter this league's ever seen. But overall, I mean, we somewhat similar lists, I'd say. I got it. Now that I'm looking at these lists, where's Duncan Robinson?
I honestly, if I had to knock,
I have Duncan Robinson, but you don't. So I'm wondering why you don't have Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson would probably be 8 for me, and I would probably have Luke Kennard 9.
Why do you want Luke Kennard on here?
I don't think you understand either how good
Luke Kennard is not one of the better.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. I got to look at his numbers. I guess. Okay, last 2 seasons.
He's been shooting insane the past. I mean, 45% on 6. Detroit 40% on 6.5 a game with a bad team. And then only 3.5 the year before, but 45%. I guess maybe because the sample size hasn't been there quite just with the teams he's played on, and then now he's finally getting more usage. I guess maybe I'd leave him off still, but his numbers have been great. But
I do take it back a little bit. I didn't realize. I mean, basically 45% the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And then even before that, 40 the year before, 39 the year before, 42. Hey, I take it back. I knew he was a good shooter. Like I'm not sitting here saying Luke Kennard's a bad shooter, but like he's not someone I would like. Again, when you say top 10 shooters, I'm not thinking Luke Kennard. So hey,
and that's fair. I think he's kind of developing into potentially one of those names, but tough with some big names on here.
Yeah, and some of these guys. I mean, to me, Duncan Robinson is someone like compared to a Luke Kennard, I think of Duncan Robinson when I think of best shooters in the NBA. Like, just his maybe because it's the only thing he can really do is like it's just like he's out there to shoot the ball, and he's just catch the ball, shoot the ball. Like he can't really dribble, he can't really pass, he can't really defend. It's just shoot the ball. And I do think, as I mentioned, some of these guys, or quite a few of these guys, at least on my list, had down seasons. So like if Lillard struggles again, Buddy Hield not struggles, but are average to slightly above average again. I'm trying to so Duncan Robinson, like if those guys do fall a little bit, Paul George, then I could see putting in Halliburton, Middleton, Kennard, any of those guys.
Yeah.
It's definitely there's some of these spots up for grabs because these guys haven't been, some of them haven't been amazing this past year. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree.
All right, that does it for this episode. Our goal was 45 minutes. We're at about the 40-minute mark, so we got it done.
Yeah.
So, hey, game 3 tomorrow. We'll be watching it together, I think. So,
Go Warriors.
Yeah, go Warriors. Let's hope they can pull it out. Should be fun. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening. See you later.